There has been a huge media war over President Trump's crackdown on D.C. crime, taking power over the district's police department and bringing in the FBI and the National Guard as a show of force.
You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people, and we're not going to let it happen anymore.
Mayor Muriel Bowser now is suing the feds to block the takeover, but has little leverage because of the district's limited home rule powers.
While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Many on the right welcoming the federal firepower in a city that's been plagued by this wave of carjackings.
This is brilliant, especially that show of force that we just saw during this press conference, this Liberation Day for Washington, D.C.
We saw firsthand as a White House press corps member talked about how he had been robbed at gunpoint by a child and nothing happened.
I can't tell you how profoundly stupid it is for Democrats to get up with their facts and their figures and their charts and their graphs and say, look, you're safe. Can't you read this chart, idiots? Why are you complaining?
More mixed reaction on the left. MSNBC breaking away from the marathon presser and challenging the president's numbers, but others welcoming the move.
He portrayed D.C. as a city awash in crime, in crisis, a place that's unsafe to walk the streets. That's just not true.
Donald Trump wants us all to be talking about his decision to send just enough National Guard troops onto the streets of Washington, D.C., so that news cameras can get pictures of them.
People living in supposedly a nice part of town, downtown, where there's shootings, where there's still carjackings, where there's still muggings, where people are still getting the hell beaten out of them walking to a restaurant.
Sarah, why has there been so much media criticism of Trump, especially on the left, for bringing in the FBI, the National Guard? Some of the agents will now be armed, given the level of crime here.
I think the media tends to be reflexively against anything that Donald Trump does. They did this on the economy. I mean, you just heard S.E. Cupp saying, and I think that's a really salient point, Democrats in the media cherry-picked numbers off a spreadsheet and said this problem that we're not personally experiencing, that the economy is bad, can't possibly be happening because we're insulated from it. That's what's happening with crime. A lot of these journalists live in really nice neighborhoods. They're not exposed to the crime as much as other residents of D.C.
That's not true. There is crime in really nice
Well, there's crime everywhere, but it's not nearly as bad as in Ward 7 and Ward 8, where it's the absolute worst. And so, you know, these Democrats and the media are against anything Trump tries to do.
Many, as you know, on the left are accusing Trump of authoritarianism. But in the city, there are people who are afraid to walk around, especially with this wave of carjackings. Only 16 carjackings in July. I mean, that's disgraceful. So why not welcome the extra firepower?
Look, I live in Ward 8. Okay, I am a Ward 8 resident in the city, and there was a time at that.
Explain to people.
Yeah, Ward 8 is a neighborhood that, if you know, based on all the statistics, is a quote unquote a high crime zip code. But let me be very clear. There was a time post-pandemic where we saw an increase in crime. And what we also saw was both here in the District of Columbia, and I've also covered this story extensively in Forbes magazine. What we've also seen in D.C., in Baltimore, in Chicago, in Detroit, is we've seen local leadership with local community groups actually tackle this issue. They've invested in community, invested in rec centers, they've invested in smart local strategies, and they're actually seeing results. Our own affiliate here in Washington, D.C. has seen a 16% reduction in violent crime in Ward 8, in Ward 7, and other parts of the city. The idea that we're going to militarize and put troops on the ground and that's going to so-called wave a magic wand and solve D.C.'s crime crisis, which we don't have, by the way, or solve Baltimore's crime crisis, that's a misnomer, because what we've seen in this crime reduction, Howie, is actually this crime reduction is happening as police forces are at their smallest that we've seen them in decades.
Well, since you brought it up, and Trump mentioned those other cities as well, do you see a racial aspect here? Because these cities tend to be run by Democratic mayors or have sizable black populations.
Well, look, I think, where there's smoke, there is fire. And I think it's very interesting that people are talking about Ward 7 and 8, but they rarely actually talk to Ward 7 or 8 or Baltimore or Chicago residents who are living in these neighborhoods. And what we will tell you is it's not that we want more law enforcement, we want tough on crime policies. What we'll tell you is we want smart on safety policies. We all believe in public safety, and public safety is a value. But public safety means schools that work, hospitals that work, grocery stores that work, and communities where there are jobs. When that happens, people are less likely to commit crimes. The reason why there's no crimes in the Georgetown neighborhood and there might be more crime in Ward 8 is because there's jobs in Georgetown. There's schools that work in Georgetown. And so what we've got to do as a nation is say this is the problem instead of just putting troops on the ground to solve it. That's not the answer.
Well, since you brought up that neighborhood, Maureen Dowd, New York Times columnist, posted it last night, that she went out to dinner with her sister. And when she came back, and she lives in a very nice neighborhood, her sister's Buick was gone. So it's not like some of these Tonier neighborhoods are completely insulated from this.
That's right. But we did an analysis at the Washington Examiner. Mm-hmm. The crime rate in Ward 8 of D.C. is worse than the crime rate in Ciudad Juarez on the border between Mexico and Texas. One of the most violent cities in the world. It's more dangerous than South Africa, which is now infamous for its murders. So this is a problem.
But Sarah, the question is, what is the solution? So you're saying the solution that is putting 800 National Guard. By the way, I live in Ward 8, and we have not seen one of those National Guard troops in our streets. So you're patrolling them by the Washington Monument, and you're not giving the solution.
I want to give Sarah some time.
When you have a crime rate that is
so what's the solution?
Serious, what's been done by local leaders is obviously not working. This is a brilliant move politically from Donald Trump.
National Guard that we haven't seen.
Can you let her finish, please?
Because it forces Democrats to defend a status quo that is so obviously broken, and any normal person, outside of the partisan, tornado that we have here in Washington can see that it's a popular position to try to stop crime.
And Sarah, Trump keeps saying that crime has never been higher in D.C. That's not true.
Right.
In fact, it's down 26% compared to this time last year.
It's still
and
higher
a 30-year
than
low.
pre-pandemic levels.
But who cares about statistics when you come back and your car is gone? Who cares about statistics when they've not been able to enroll? These are often teenagers to deal with the carjacking problem.
Well, exactly, right? People and violent crime is not the only metric of whether a city feels unsafe. There's also disorder and squalor that you see around the city that contributes to a sense that this isn't the city of 10 years ago, of 5 years ago, where we all used to live. That 30-year number, by the way, is pretty misleading. The murder rate is still higher than it was in 2019 pre-pandemic.
Well, I also want to mention that Sean Dunn threw a Subway sandwich at one of the federal agents and was cursing him out. And he's not just some guy. He works for the Justice Department, or did work before he was fired. Let me get a break here, and we'll return to our top story with former four-star general.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.